What's going on? Vincent here. In this how-to video, I'm going to go through a couple common situations that you might find your AEG in. There's a few cases where it's faster and easier just to fix the problem yourself rather than to leave it with a tech where it could take a couple weeks. For more serious situations like broken or stripped parts, you're best off leaving it with a tech. Now before we get started, it's important to remember when doing any sort of tech work, these guns can shoot without a magazine, so it's always a good idea to use a barrel cover. We're going to be using the CM16 platform as an example today, but other AEGs will be more or less the same principle. Situation number 1, no response at all. You plug in a fully charged battery, pull the trigger, and absolutely nothing happens. No sound, no click, nothing other than your finger moving. This generally points to an electrical problem. Somewhere in the circuit, there's a gap and there's no juice at all going to the motor. First thing I would check is the fuse. The fuse is there as a fail-safe in case of a sudden surge in power. Check your manual, but usually the fuse is located near the battery connector. Is it blown, cracked, or even straight up missing? Replacement fuses can be found at automotive stores or at our shop. If you replace yours only to have it blow again, there's probably a more serious issue and you should get it looked at by a tech. If the fuse looks fine, take a look at the connectors. Tamiya connectors are the most common in the industry. Take a look at both the gun side and the battery side. Sometimes the sleeve is stretched out a little too wide and doesn't contact the pin. You can try to give the connector a good wiggle and sometimes this will do the trick. Or take a small screwdriver and bend the sleeve inwards a little bit to get a better contact. Another spot to check is the motor contacts. Locate the motor. In most cases, it'll be in the pistol grip. Unscrew the base of the pistol grip, making sure you don't lose the little motor plate if it's a separate piece. Are the wires solidly attached to the motor? If those connectors are loose, you can take some pliers and gently pinch them inwards for a better contact. Place the motor plate on the motor and carefully align the grip base. It only fits one way. When you put the cover back on, be careful not to pinch any wires. If it takes too much force to close, you're probably pinching one of those wires. Hopefully, your electrical issue was one of those 3 common cases. If not, one of your internal wires may be disconnected. Bring it to a tech and they'll sort you out. Situation number 2. You pull the trigger, you hear the motor trying, but you never get a shot. Most likely your battery doesn't have enough juice to pull that spring. Remember, springs in our Canadian guns are quite stiff to meet the regulations. If your gun came with one of these free unlabeled 8.4 batteries, then it just doesn't have the juice you need to pull that spring. You'll need either a more powerful battery or a weaker spring. Check out our battery guide video for more info. If you can pop by the store, we can plug in a more powerful battery and see if that does the trick. Situation number 3. The gun shoots but makes a really high-pitched noise. Usually this is a pretty quick fix. Underneath the motor, there's a little screw called the motor height adjustment screw. This adjusts the gear mesh between the motor's pinion gear and the bevel gear inside the mech box. Too tight or too loose and it'll make a high-pitched noise and your rate of fire will suffer. Turn the screw while dry firing periodically and see if the sound gets any better. If the sound gets worse, turn it the other way. Eventually, you'll find that sweet spot where the mesh is perfect. If you turn the screw and nothing changes at all, there's a chance that your motor is stuck. Take off the grip cover and try moving the motor up and down. Oftentimes, a wire gets wedged. The motor wires should be running behind the motor and should be freely moving. Make sure the motor is free and then replace the cover. If the sound seems to be coming from the mech box itself, it's probably a gear shimming issue and will require taking apart the mech box. Situation number 4. Gun cycles, but sounds like it's trying to eat itself. If the noise is worse than simply a high-pitched whine, then likely you either have a stuck piston or stripped gears. Don't try to keep on shooting the gun as you'll just be making it worse. Bring it to a tech and they'll sort you out. It might sound scary, but oftentimes it's just replacing a $10 part. Situation number 5. Gun cycle, but is misfeeding. Now let's say everything sounds okay when you dry fire, but when you pop in a loaded mag, only a few shots come out, if at all. The first thing you want to be checking is your magazine situation. If you're running the included high cap mag, make sure the reservoir is at least half full. When you're winding up the winder, wait until the BBs come all the way up the feed tube, then give it a couple more winds. A good test for any magazine is to pull the BB retainer and see if the BBs spring out. they should spring out with quite a bit of force. If they don't have much force or only a few come out, then it's the magazine that's giving you problems. If it's not an issue with the magazine, it's probably an issue with your nozzle or your tappet plate. This is what it'll look like inside the gun. Notice how it's not moving at all. With a flashlight, you can look inside the hop-up unit and inspect the nozzle. Dry fire the gun and observe that nozzle. The nozzle should move back and forth with every shot. Before you pull the trigger, the nozzle should be fully back, allowing a BB into the chamber. Every shot, the nozzle should move forward all the way, creating a seal in the chamber. If it's not moving properly, you'll need to replace your tappet plate, but luckily it's not an expensive part. That's it for today. I hope you guys found this useful. In a future video, we'll be addressing more issues and how to fix them, but for today, I wanted to do a more basic diagnosis video. As a side note, it's always a good idea to grab a cheap used gun to learn how to tech. You'll save a lot of money in the long run, and you'll get to know the sport a lot better. As always, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you on the next one.